Hello there and welcome. Tonight we're traveling somewhere quiet, distant, and almost perfectly still. Not to the bright surface of a planet, but beneath thick ice, far from sunlight, on worlds that move slowly through the dark. When we look up at the night sky, moons often seem simple, pale circles, silent companions, easy to overlook. But beneath some of those frozen surfaces, science suspects something gently surprising may be happening. Deep below layers of ice that have remained unbroken for millions of years, there may be vast oceans of liquid water, warmed not by sunlight, but by slow gravitational motion. And the truth is, we don't know nearly as much as we think we do. We've sent spacecraft past these moons. We've measured their gravity, mapped their surfaces, and studied the cracks in their ice. Yet what lies below remains unseen. No cameras, no samples, just subtle hints, quiet signals, and patient observation. For example, on one moon orbiting Jupiter, the ice may be dozens of miles thick, hiding an ocean larger than all of Earth's oceans combined. If that ocean exists, it has likely been there for billions of years, moving slowly, untouched, unseen. And that isn't something to be unsettled by. It's something to rest within, because these hidden oceans don't rush. They don't erupt or change suddenly. They warm slowly. They move gently. They exist without needing attention or understanding. Tonight isn't about proving life exists somewhere else. It's about drifting through these frozen worlds, letting the idea of slow, quiet energy beneath still surfaces calm the mind. You don't need to remember facts. You don't need to picture everything clearly. Just allow the pace of these distant moons to soften your thoughts. Before we start, subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. Now plug in your headphones, get comfortable, and let's drift into this amazing topic together. When we think about moons, we often picture them as background objects, small companions circling something more important. But tonight, we begin by letting that idea drift away. Moons are not leftovers or decorations. They are worlds in their own right, shaped by time, motion, and quiet persistence. Many moons are older than the landscapes on Earth we recognize today, and they have followed the same slow paths for billions of years without interruption. One gentle fact to hold on to is that some moons are larger than planets, yet they exist in near silence, without weather, cities, or change that demands attention. They orbit patiently, repeating the same motions again and again, creating a rhythm that never rushes. This repetition is calming because it removes surprise. Nothing sudden happens on most moons. Another comforting truth is that moons often keep the same face turned toward their planet, a behavior called tidal locking, which means one side always faces home. This creates a sense of familiarity and steadiness. There is no need to turn or search. The world simply remains. As you imagine these distant spheres moving through darkness, allow the mind to release expectations of drama. These places are defined by stillness. They do not erupt or transform quickly. They exist quietly, holding their shape, their orbit, and their silence across immense spans of time, offering a model of calm persistence that asks nothing and promises nothing beyond continuity itself, unfolding slowly, evenly, and without strain. Each moon follows its own path, yet all share a similar quiet nature shaped by distance and time. One interesting fact is that many moons have no atmosphere at all, meaning there is no wind, no sound, and no weather as we know it. Without air to move heat or carry storms, surfaces remain unchanged for millions of years. A footprint, if one could be made, might last longer than human history. This kind of stillness can feel deeply reassuring. Nothing erases itself quickly. Another gentle truth is that moons do not glow on their own. They reflect light slowly and softly, never shining, only borrowing brightness for a time before returning to darkness. This borrowed light creates a sense of humility. Moons do not compete with stars or suns. They remain content in reflection. Many moons also rotate slowly, meaning a single day can last weeks or even months. This stretches time into something wide and forgiving. For the listener, this expanded sense of time can help thoughts slow down. There is no rush from morning to night. Everything unfolds gradually. As you picture a moon turning almost imperceptibly in space, notice how effort seems unnecessary. Motion happens without striving. The moon does not push forward, it follows. This quiet obedience to gravity creates stability, and stability invites rest. The idea of worlds that move without urgency can gently guide awareness away from pressure, allowing the mind to rest within a rhythm that has never needed speed to continue. Moons are shaped by forces that work quietly over long periods, not by sudden events. One calming fact is that most moons formed early in the history of the solar system and have remained largely unchanged since then. While planets experience erosion, weather, and shifting surfaces, many moons preserve ancient scars from impacts billions of years old. These marks are not signs of chaos, but of memory. The surface remembers. Another soothing truth is that gravity holds moons in place without effort. There are no engines, no adjustments, no corrections. The balance between moon and planet is maintained naturally, moment by moment, without awareness or intention. This kind of effortless balance can feel comforting to imagine. The moon does not try to stay in orbit. It simply is. Many moons also experience extreme cold, yet this cold is stable rather than threatening. Temperatures remain consistent for long stretches, removing stress from sudden change. For the listener, this consistency can feel grounding. The environment does not surprise what exists within it. As you imagine standing on a moon's surface, surrounded by silence and darkness, notice how nothing moves quickly. Shadows remain fixed. Light shifts slowly. The world does not demand response. It allows presence. These quiet worlds show us that stability does not require control. It emerges naturally when systems are allowed to settle into their simplest forms, guided by gravity, time, and distance, holding everything gently without interruption or urgency. Some moons are small and rocky, others vast and layered, yet all share a calm relationship with motion. One fascinating fact is that many moons follow slightly tilted orbits, creating gentle variations rather than perfect circles. These small differences unfold slowly and predictably, never abruptly. Another comforting truth is that moons often influence their planets through tides, quietly shaping oceans and surfaces without ever being seen. This influence is subtle and constant. It does not announce itself. For the listener, this idea can feel reassuring. Quiet forces can have meaningful effects without noise or effort. Moons also travel through space together, forming families around their planets, each one keeping its distance while remaining connected. This balance between separation and belonging feels emotionally safe. Nothing crowds. Nothing drifts away completely. As you imagine a system of moons moving together through darkness, notice how the scene feels orderly and calm. There is space between each world, yet their paths remain aligned. This can help the mind relax into the idea that connection does not require closeness or constant interaction. Presence can be steady and gentle. Moons do not collide or compete. They coexist. This quiet cooperation has lasted for billions of years, reinforcing the idea that calm systems endure. Allowing this image to settle can ease the nervous system, reminding it that stability often comes from slow, consistent relationships rather than constant engagement or effort. Moons also invite us to rethink what it means to be active or alive. One gentle fact is that many moons appear still on the surface, yet remain dynamic internally or gravitationally. Activity does not always look like movement. It can exist beneath calm exteriors. Another soothing truth is that moons are not destinations. They do not invite arrival or exploration in their natural state. They simply exist, complete without visitors. This removes the pressure to perform or impress. For the listener, this can feel deeply relaxing. There is no expectation placed on these worlds. They are allowed to remain unchanged. Moons also experience long periods of darkness, sometimes lasting weeks, which creates uninterrupted stillness. Darkness here is not sudden or frightening. It arrives gradually and stays gently. As you imagine this long night, notice how the absence of light feels neutral rather than empty. The mind can rest without stimulation. Even when sunlight returns, it does so slowly, creeping across the surface without urgency. This pacing supports calm awareness. The deep quiet of moons encourages observation rather than reaction. There is nothing to respond to. Nothing approaches quickly. Holding this image can help the mind release its habit of scanning for change. Moons teach us that stillness is not lack. It is a state of balance. They exist comfortably within it, allowing time to stretch and soften around them. As we remain with the idea of moons as quiet worlds, one final fact helps settle this perspective fully. Despite their calm appearance, moons have shaped the history of entire systems simply by being present. Their gravity, their mass, and their steady orbits influence everything around them without effort. This quiet impact is powerful. It shows that presence alone can matter. For the listener, this idea can feel reassuring. You do not need to move constantly to have meaning. Moons also remind us that not all worlds are meant to change quickly or be understood completely. Many moons remain mysterious, not because they hide secrets, but because they do not offer them easily. This lack of urgency invites patience. As you imagine drifting alongside one of these distant worlds, notice how the need to know begins to fade. Understanding becomes less important than simply being near. The moon does not ask questions. It does not answer them. It remains steady, carrying its quiet through the dark. This steadiness can gently guide awareness into a slower state, where thoughts lengthen and gaps between them widen. The story continues naturally from here, moving deeper into the nature of these silent companions, as the mind remains relaxed, unhurried, and open to the calm that unfolds when nothing is required to happen next. Ice in deep space does not behave the way we expect it to on Earth. Here, ice often means something temporary, something that melts, drips, or disappears. But on distant moons, ice becomes something else entirely. One gentle fact is that far from the warmth of the sun, ice can remain solid and unchanged for millions of years. Thick shells of frozen water settle into place and stay there, unmoving, insulated by their own depth. These layers grow slowly, forming over long stretches of time rather than sudden freezes. Each new layer presses softly against the ones beneath it, creating strength through patience instead of force. For the listener, this image can feel deeply calming. Ice here is not fragile. It is dependable. Another comforting truth is that these frozen shells act like protective blankets. They shield the surface below from radiation, temperature swings, and constant impact from space. Nothing sharp reaches through easily. As you imagine these vast ice layers resting quietly in darkness, notice how nothing rushes. Nothing collapses. The ice simply remains where it formed, holding its shape without effort. This stillness invites the mind to slow, to rest in the idea that some structures are built not to change, but to endure. In this world, ice is not a warning. It is a promise of stability, shaped by time and allowed to exist without interruption or urgency. Another calming aspect of eternal ice is how it forms through balance rather than stress. On many moons, ice appears because water had time to freeze slowly, without sudden heat or pressure. One interesting fact is that freezing in space often happens gradually from the surface downward, forming stacked layers over immense spans of time. Each layer settles gently, pressing softly on the one below, increasing stability rather than strain. This pressure strengthens the ice instead of weakening it. For the listener, this reframes pressure as something supportive rather than harmful. The weight above helps maintain order beneath. Ice also expands slightly as it freezes, filling tiny gaps and smoothing irregular spaces, which reduces weak points. Over time, this makes the ice shell more uniform and resilient. Another soothing truth is that extreme cold does not make this ice brittle. Cold slows movement at the smallest levels, allowing structures to remain calm and settled. There is no sudden shifting or cracking. Everything moves, if at all, at a pace too slow to notice. As you imagine these layers forming over thousands of years, notice how patience replaces urgency. Nothing is forced. The ice arrives when conditions allow, then stays. This long, careful formation creates trust. The shell does not need constant attention. It holds itself together naturally, guided by rules that remain steady, allowing stability to emerge when time is allowed to. Thick ice shells also create a sense of insulation that goes beyond temperature alone. One important fact is that ice is a surprisingly good insulator, especially when it forms in deep, solid layers. Heat trapped beneath the surface escapes very slowly, allowing conditions below the ice to remain stable for long periods. This means the surface can stay frozen and still while gentle warmth lingers far underneath. For the listener, this creates a comforting image of protection without exposure. The ice does not press down harshly. It cushions. Another calming truth is that once an ice shell reaches a certain thickness, changes above have very little effect below. Impacts, radiation, and extreme cold are softened and absorbed before they reach deeper layers. This reduces stress on anything beneath the surface. The ice becomes a quiet guardian, filtering the outside world rather than blocking it completely. As you picture this layered protection, notice how the idea feels safe rather than isolating. Insulation here is not separation. It is care. The ice allows the environment underneath to exist without constant disturbance. Nothing demands immediate reaction. This slow buffering creates a rhythm where change happens gently, if at all. Holding this image can help the mind relax into the thought that protection does not require rigidity. It can be soft, layered, and patient, allowing stability to persist naturally while the surface remains calm and undisturbed over immense stretches of time. Ice that never melts also teaches us something quiet about stillness and motion. One fascinating fact is that even solid ice can slowly flow over long timescales, behaving more like thick honey than brittle glass. This movement is so slow it is almost invisible, measured in inches over centuries. For the listener, this idea can feel soothing. Motion does not always mean disruption. Slow movement can preserve balance rather than break it. These gradual shifts allow ice shells to adjust without cracking, responding gently to pressure instead of resisting it. Another comforting truth is that this slow flow helps heal fractures naturally. If a crack forms, surrounding ice presses inward over time, closing the gap without urgency. There is no need for repair. The system corrects itself. As you imagine this nearly motionless movement, notice how effort disappears from the picture. Nothing pushes. Nothing strains. Everything responds at its own pace. This teaches a calming lesson. Stability does not require rigidity. It requires flexibility stretched across time. Ice that moves slowly can remain whole longer than ice that resists change. Holding this idea can help the mind soften its own resistance. You do not need to be perfectly still to feel stable. You only need time. The ice shows how patience allows structure to remain intact, adjusting quietly, without alarm, while the surface continues to appear calm, smooth, and unchanged. Another gentle truth about permanent ice is how long it remembers its own history. One important fact is that layers within ice shells preserve patterns of formation, capturing moments from millions of years ago. Each layer reflects conditions from the time it formed, stacking memory upon memory. For the listener, this creates a peaceful sense of continuity. Nothing is erased quickly. The past is held rather than lost. Unlike environments shaped by wind or water, ice changes slowly enough to remember. These memories do not disturb the present. They simply remain embedded, silent, and stable. Another calming aspect is that ice does not rush to reveal what it holds. There is no pressure to uncover or expose what lies beneath. Everything exists in its own time. This absence of urgency allows the environment to remain calm. As you imagine ice layers resting one upon another, notice how the idea of stored time feels comforting rather than heavy. The weight of history does not collapse anything. It strengthens. Each layer adds support. This perspective can help the mind release the need to resolve everything immediately. Some things are meant to remain held, not examined. Ice that never melts offers a model of quiet preservation. It allows the present to exist without disturbance from the past, while still carrying it gently forward, unchanged and undemanding. As we remain with this image of enduring ice, one final fact settles into place. Ice shells on distant moons have remained stable not because they resist change, but because change arrives slowly enough to be absorbed. This balance has allowed them to exist quietly for millions of years. For the listener, this understanding can feel deeply reassuring. Stability does not come from force. It comes from patience. The ice does not hurry to melt or break. It waits. It responds only when needed, and even then, it does so gently. This creates an environment where nothing needs to be rushed or fixed. The ice holds its position naturally, supported by cold, pressure, and time working together. As you imagine this vast frozen surface stretching endlessly under a dark sky, notice how stillness feels full rather than empty. The ice does not feel lifeless. It feels settled. This sense of settledness invites the mind to rest alongside it, to release urgency and effort. Ice that never melts reminds us that protection, insulation, and endurance can exist quietly, without drama, allowing everything beneath and within to remain undisturbed as time continues unfolding slowly, steadily, and without demand. Warmth in space does not always come from fire, light, or explosions. Sometimes it comes from motion so gentle it can barely be noticed. One calming fact about many icy moons is that their warmth is created not by burning heat, but by slow stretching and squeezing caused by gravity. As these moons travel around their planets, they are gently pulled and released again and again. This movement is not violent. It is more like a quiet flexing, repeated endlessly over time. The moon's shape shifts slightly with each orbit, creating friction deep inside. That friction produces warmth, not in flashes, but in a steady, almost unchanging way. For the listener, this idea can feel deeply soothing. Heat does not need to roar or blaze. It can arrive silently, without disruption. This kind of warmth does not threaten the surface. It stays below, held safely beneath ice. Nothing cracks suddenly. Nothing erupts. The process is patient, predictable, and constant. As you imagine this gentle motion happening again and again over millions of years, notice how calm the image feels. There is no urgency, no countdown. The moon moves because it always has. Gravity does its work without effort. This slow exchange of energy creates a dependable inner warmth that never needs to announce itself. It simply exists, quietly supporting the world from within, allowing stability to continue without drama or strain. Another comforting truth about this hidden warmth is how evenly it is distributed over time. One interesting fact is that tidal heating does not spike suddenly or fade quickly. It remains consistent as long as the moon continues its gentle orbit. Each pass around its planet repeats the same motion, applying pressure in familiar places. Over time, this repetition smooths out extremes, preventing sudden temperature changes. For the listener, this reinforces the idea of reliable rhythms. Nothing surprises the system. Everything unfolds as expected. This steady warmth allows interior layers to remain calm and balanced, without overheating or cooling too quickly. Unlike fire, which flares and dies, this heat does not demand fuel or oxygen. It requires only movement and time. As you imagine this warmth circulating deep below the ice, notice how it never reaches the surface in a disruptive way. It is filtered, softened, and held. The ice above absorbs any excess, maintaining stillness. This creates a peaceful separation between motion and calm. Inside, there is gentle activity. Outside, there is rest. Holding this image can help the mind relax into the idea that movement does not have to disturb stillness. Energy can flow quietly beneath calm surfaces, supporting life and balance without ever breaking the silence. The deep past and distant space both show that continuity often comes from repetition rather than force. The source of this warmth is also deeply reassuring because it depends on connection rather than isolation. One important fact is that tidal heating only happens because moons are in relationship with their planets. Gravity links them together in a slow, repeating dance. The moon does not act alone. It responds to the presence of something larger nearby. For the listener, this can feel comforting. Warmth comes from connection, not conflict. The pull between planet and moon is steady and predictable, never sudden. This allows the moon to settle into a rhythm that rarely changes. Over time, this relationship becomes stable, creating conditions that last for ages. The warmth generated is not accidental. It is a natural result of staying close, moving together through space. As you imagine this gentle gravitational bond, notice how calm the interaction feels. There is no collision, no struggle, just influence. The moon is shaped softly by the presence of its planet, and that shaping creates warmth that lingers. This idea can help the mind rest. It suggests that support can come quietly, without effort. You do not need dramatic events to feel sustained. Sometimes, simply remaining in steady motion within a reliable relationship is enough to generate what is needed. The universe often works this way, creating warmth through closeness rather than intensity, through repetition rather than urgency. Another soothing aspect of this internal warmth is how it works with ice rather than against it. One fascinating fact is that tidal heating does not melt ice all at once. Instead, it softens layers gradually, allowing slow movement and adjustment. The ice above responds gently, flowing or shifting over long periods without cracking. This cooperation between warmth and cold creates balance rather than conflict. For the listener, this paints a calming picture. Heat does not need to destroy in order to exist. It can coexist with stillness. The ice remains intact, acting as insulation and protection, while warmth beneath continues its quiet work. Nothing fights for dominance. Everything finds its place. As you imagine layers of ice resting calmly above a gently warmed interior, notice how the system feels complete. There is no threat of eruption, no sudden release. Everything remains contained. This teaches a peaceful lesson. Opposing forces do not always need resolution. They can remain in harmony when time allows them to adjust slowly. Holding this image can help the mind soften around its own inner contrasts. You can hold warmth and stillness together without tension. The distant moons remind us that balance is often quiet, achieved not through control, but through patience and cooperation unfolding naturally. The pace of this process also invites a sense of deep rest. One important fact is that tidal heating operates on timescales far beyond human experience. Changes happen over thousands or millions of years, not seconds or minutes. This removes urgency entirely. Nothing needs immediate attention. The warmth builds and remains, guided by orbits that rarely change. For the listener, this can feel deeply grounding. It places worries into a wider context where time stretches comfortably. There is no deadline, no rush to act. The universe itself allows processes to take as long as they need. As you imagine this gentle heating continuing endlessly beneath an icy surface, notice how the idea slows thought. When change takes that long, there is nothing to fear. Everything has time to settle. This kind of warmth supports continuity rather than disruption. It allows environments to remain stable long enough for patterns to emerge and persist. The deep calm of this process invites awareness to rest without expectation. You do not need to monitor or manage anything. The system works because it always has. Gravity pulls, the moon responds, warmth follows, and the surface remains quiet, unchanged, and safe. As we stay with this image of warmth without fire, one final fact settles softly into place. Tidal heating does not announce itself. There are no flames, no light, no sound. Its presence is known only through long-term effects, through what remains stable rather than what changes. For the listener, this offers a deeply calming message. Support does not need to be loud to be real. Some of the most important forces work silently, shaping conditions gently over time. The warmth beneath icy moons has likely existed for longer than human history, continuing without interruption or demand. It does not hurry toward an outcome. It simply sustains what is already there. As you imagine this quiet internal heat continuing its slow work, allow your own thoughts to settle into that same rhythm. Nothing needs to be forced. Nothing needs to ignite. Stability can come from steady motion repeated patiently. The universe offers warmth without fire, energy without chaos, and continuity without urgency, allowing everything to remain held within a calm balance that unfolds gently, endlessly, and without ever needing to draw attention to itself. Europa does not announce itself with noise or motion. It appears calm, almost still, a pale moon wrapped completely in ice as it moves quietly around Jupiter. One gentle fact about Europa is that beneath this frozen surface lies an ocean so vast it may contain more water than all of Earth's oceans combined. This ocean is not visible and never has been. It exists in total darkness, sealed away under miles of solid ice. For the listener, this idea can feel strangely comforting. Something so large does not need to be seen to exist. Europa's ocean does not crash against shores or stir storms. It moves slowly, guided by gentle forces far from sunlight. The ice above acts like a lid, keeping everything calm and protected. Nothing rushes. Nothing escapes. As you imagine this hidden water, notice how quiet the image feels. There are no waves breaking, no wind, no surface disturbance at all. The ocean remains enclosed, steady, and patient. It has likely existed for millions, possibly billions of years, without interruption. This long, uninterrupted presence invites the mind to slow down. Europa reminds us that depth does not require drama. Vastness can be silent. Stability can come from being held, not exposed. The moon continues its orbit, unchanged, carrying its quiet ocean through space without ever needing to reveal it. Another calming truth about Europa's ocean is how gently it is kept warm. One interesting fact is that this ocean does not rely on sunlight at all. Europa is far too distant from the sun for surface warmth. Instead, heat comes from deep within, created slowly by gravitational movement. This warmth spreads evenly through the water, preventing it from freezing solid. For the listener, this reinforces a peaceful idea. Warmth can arrive without brightness. Life-supporting conditions do not need light or activity. They can exist quietly in the dark. The ice above insulates the ocean, keeping temperatures stable and preventing sudden changes. Nothing boils. Nothing freezes unexpectedly. The environment remains consistent over long periods of time. As you imagine this warmth moving gently through Europa's ocean, notice how controlled it feels. There is no flare or surge. The heat is soft and constant, just enough to keep water liquid. This balance creates a sense of trust. The system does not need supervision. It has maintained itself for ages. Holding this image can help the mind relax into the idea that stability often comes from subtle forces working patiently. Europa's ocean does not hurry toward change. It remains quietly active beneath a surface that never breaks, offering a powerful example of calm continuity supported by gentle, unseen warmth. The darkness of Europa's ocean adds another layer of stillness to its story. One important fact is that no sunlight has ever reached this water. The ice above blocks all light completely. Yet darkness here does not feel threatening. It feels restful. Without light, there are no daily cycles, no sudden shifts between brightness and shadow. Time passes without markers. For the listener, this can feel deeply soothing. A place without visual stimulation invites rest. The ocean exists in a state of permanent night, where nothing flashes or changes quickly. Movement, if it happens at all, is slow and deliberate. Currents drift gently, guided by heat and gravity rather than wind. As you imagine this endless dark water, notice how the absence of light removes urgency. Nothing needs to react. Nothing needs to be seen. The environment does not demand attention. It simply exists. This kind of darkness can feel protective, like a quiet room where the mind can finally settle. Europa's ocean shows that absence of light does not mean absence of life or motion. It means calm. It means consistency. Holding this image can help thoughts soften and slow, releasing the habit of scanning for change. In Europa's silent ocean, there is nothing to watch and nothing to anticipate, allowing awareness to rest comfortably within the idea of a world that moves gently, unseen, and uninterrupted. Another soothing fact about Europa's ocean is how isolated and undisturbed it remains. One fascinating truth is that the ice shell above acts as a powerful barrier, protecting the water below from space. Radiation from Jupiter never reaches the ocean. Meteor impacts on the surface do not disturb it. The ice absorbs and spreads any energy long before it can reach the water. For the listener, this creates a strong sense of safety. The ocean is not exposed to chaos. It is shielded. Everything above it acts as protection rather than threat. This separation allows the ocean to remain stable over immense spans of time. Nothing sudden intrudes. Nothing disrupts its balance. As you imagine this protective ice, notice how solid and dependable it feels, layer upon layer, holding everything in place. This kind of protection encourages deep rest. The ocean does not need to defend itself. It is already cared for by its environment. Europa shows us that some worlds thrive not because they are active, but because they are well contained. The ice does not trap the ocean. It preserves it. Holding this image can help the mind feel held as well, supported by the idea that stillness and protection often work together, creating spaces where nothing needs to change in order to remain whole. The slow movement within Europa's ocean further reinforces its calm nature. One important fact is that any currents within this water likely move far more slowly than Earth's oceans. Without wind, tides, or storms, motion happens gradually, driven only by heat differences and gravity. For the listener, this paints a picture of motion without stress. Nothing surges. Nothing collides. Water shifts gently over long distances, taking its time. This slow circulation allows the ocean to remain evenly mixed and stable. Temperature changes happen gradually, if at all. As you imagine this deep water drifting quietly beneath the ice, notice how the pace feels unhurried. There is no rush to reach anywhere. Movement exists simply because the system continues. This kind of motion can feel deeply calming. It suggests that activity does not need urgency. Things can move without pressure. Europa's ocean reminds us that flow can be soft, almost imperceptible, yet still meaningful. Holding this image can help awareness relax into a slower internal rhythm. You do not need to push forward. You can drift. The universe allows some processes to unfold at speeds so gentle they feel like stillness, offering a quiet invitation to rest within that pace. As we remain with Europa's silent ocean, one final fact settles quietly into place. Despite everything we know, this vast body of water has never been directly observed. No probe has touched it. No instrument has seen it. Its existence is known only through careful observation and patience. For the listener, this can feel strangely peaceful. Not everything needs to be revealed to be real. Europa's ocean does not ask to be discovered. It continues quietly, whether or not it is seen. This removes pressure. There is no expectation. The ocean simply exists, moving slowly beneath its protective shell, unchanged by attention or neglect. As you imagine this unseen world continuing its calm motion, allow your thoughts to do the same. There is no need to understand every detail. Rest can come from accepting mystery without tension. Europa offers a powerful image of quiet endurance. A vast ocean, sealed in darkness, warmed gently, protected completely, and left undisturbed by time. Holding this image allows awareness to settle deeper, carried by the understanding that some of the most stable and enduring places in the universe remain silent, hidden, and content to exist exactly as they are. Enceladus is small, quiet, and easy to overlook at first glance, especially when compared to larger moons nearby. Yet one gentle fact about Enceladus is that beneath its bright icy surface lies a hidden ocean, just as real and persistent as Europa's, even though the moon itself is much smaller. This alone offers a calming reminder that importance does not depend on size. Enceladus drifts silently around Saturn, reflecting sunlight softly, appearing almost still. Beneath that calm exterior, warmth exists, not loudly or violently, but steadily. The ice shell covering the moon is thick enough to protect what lies below, yet thin enough to allow slow movement and exchange. For the listener, this balance can feel reassuring. Enceladus shows that gentleness can coexist with strength. The moon does not rush through change. Its internal warmth unfolds gradually, shaped by gravity and time rather than force. As you imagine Enceladus floating quietly through space, notice how the image invites calm. There is no urgency in its motion. Nothing competes for attention. The moon simply continues, held in place by gravity, carrying its quiet ocean with it. This sense of being small yet complete can help the mind release pressure. You do not need to be vast to be meaningful. Enceladus exists fully within its own gentle rhythm, offering a peaceful example of how stability and significance can arise from calm persistence rather than scale. Another soothing truth about Enceladus lies in how its warmth is generated and maintained. One interesting fact is that Enceladus is warmed internally by tidal forces caused by Saturn's gravity. As the moon orbits, it is gently stretched and relaxed over and over again, like a slow-breathing motion. This movement creates heat deep inside without explosions or sudden change. The warmth spreads gradually, keeping water liquid beneath the ice. For the listener, this process feels calming because it is repetitive and predictable. Nothing spikes. Nothing collapses. The same motion repeats quietly, maintaining balance. The ice shell responds slowly, adjusting without cracking apart. This creates a stable environment that can last for immense periods of time. As you imagine this gentle stretching happening continuously, notice how the idea mirrors calm breathing. Expansion, release, and return. The system does not strain. It flows. Enceladus reminds us that warmth does not require fire. It can come from patience and repetition. Holding this image can help awareness settle into a steady internal rhythm. There is no need to force comfort. It can arrive naturally when conditions remain consistent. The moon's quiet heating process reinforces the idea that long-term stability often comes from subtle motion rather than dramatic events, offering a reassuring picture of how calm energy can sustain hidden worlds without disturbance. One of the most peaceful aspects of Enceladus is how gently it releases signs of its inner ocean. One important fact is that Enceladus sends thin plumes of water vapor and ice particles into space through cracks near its south pole. These plumes are not violent eruptions. They drift outward softly, like slow exhalations. For the listener, this image can feel especially calming. The moon does not burst open. It breathes. The cracks, sometimes called tiger stripes, open and close slightly as Enceladus moves in its orbit, allowing material to escape without disruption. This gentle release prevents pressure from building, helping the system remain balanced. As you imagine these faint plumes rising quietly against the darkness of space, notice how delicate they appear. Nothing rushes. Nothing is forced. The ocean beneath remains protected, while a small connection to the outside world exists. This balance between containment and release can feel deeply reassuring. It suggests that calm systems allow gentle outlets rather than sudden breakdowns. Enceladus shows us that expression does not need to be dramatic. It can be soft and controlled. Holding this image can help the mind relax around its own thoughts. You do not need to hold everything tightly. Small, gentle release can maintain balance. The moon continues its orbit, breathing quietly, offering a subtle reminder that steady systems often endure because they allow calm movement rather than resistance. The ocean beneath Enceladus's ice is another place where stillness dominates. One fascinating fact is that this ocean is likely in contact with the moon's rocky core, allowing slow chemical interactions to occur. These interactions happen quietly over long periods of time, without surface disruption. For the listener, this reinforces the idea that important processes do not need speed. The water remains dark, insulated, and calm. Without sunlight or storms, nothing moves quickly. Heat rises gently from below, creating slow circulation. This motion is not dramatic. It is patient. As you imagine this hidden ocean moving gradually beneath miles of ice, notice how the absence of noise and light allows the scene to feel restful. There is no pressure to observe or interfere. The ocean exists whether or not it is seen. This sense of independence can feel comforting. Enceladus does not rely on attention. It continues quietly, shaped by internal balance rather than external demand. Holding this image can help awareness let go of the need for constant stimulation. The deep universe contains places where calm processes unfold in silence, reminding us that stillness can be active and meaningful. Enceladus's ocean reinforces the idea that gentle, hidden motion can sustain systems for ages without urgency or strain. Another calming aspect of Enceladus is how consistently it behaves over time. One important fact is that observations over many years show the moon's plumes and internal activity remain steady rather than unpredictable. This suggests long-term stability rather than temporary change. For the listener, this consistency feels reassuring. The moon does not surprise. It repeats. Its behavior follows familiar patterns shaped by gravity and orbit. As you imagine Enceladus moving through space along the same path again and again, notice how the repetition feels soothing. Nothing demands attention. Nothing accelerates unexpectedly. This predictability supports rest. The universe often feels overwhelming because of scale and complexity, but Enceladus offers a quieter story. It shows that even in vast space, some places remain dependable. Holding this image can help the mind settle into trust. You do not need to anticipate disruption. Calm systems tend to remain calm. Enceladus exists as a reminder that endurance often comes from steady repetition rather than dramatic change. Its gentle motion continues without interruption, allowing internal warmth and water to persist quietly. Awareness can rest within this idea, supported by the knowledge that stability can exist naturally when conditions are allowed to repeat without interference. As we stay with Enceladus, one final gentle fact brings its story into focus. Despite its small size, Enceladus has reshaped how scientists think about where calm, life-supporting environments might exist. It shows that warmth, water, and stability do not require large planets or bright stars. For the listener, this can feel deeply comforting. Possibility does not need grandeur. Enceladus does not compete with larger worlds. It simply exists, complete in itself. Its hidden ocean, steady warmth, and gentle motion continue without demand. As you imagine this small moon drifting quietly near Saturn, releasing faint plumes into space, allow that sense of quiet completeness to settle in. Nothing here strives to be more than it is. The moon follows its orbit patiently, carrying its calm interior forward through time. This image encourages the mind to soften its expectations. You do not need to be large or visible to matter. Enceladus offers a peaceful lesson in quiet significance, showing that even the smallest worlds can hold deep stability when guided by patience, balance, and gentle motion, allowing awareness to remain calm as the journey through hidden oceans continues onward without hurry or strain. Water beneath thick ice does not rush or tumble the way rivers do on Earth, and imagining that difference immediately begins to slow the mind. On icy moons, water moves in darkness, sealed away from wind, storms, and sudden change. One gentle fact is that these hidden oceans are insulated by miles of ice, which keeps temperatures steady and prevents fast motion. Without sunlight or surface weather, water responds only to slow internal warmth and gravity. This creates movement that unfolds over years, centuries, and even longer. Currents are weak and patient, drifting rather than flowing. For the listener, this idea can feel deeply calming. Nothing here demands speed. The water has no reason to hurry. As you imagine this slow movement, picture vast layers of water shifting almost imperceptibly, guided by heat rising from below and cooling near the ice above. Each change happens gradually, allowing balance to be maintained. This kind of motion does not create waves or noise. It creates stability. Holding this image gently pulls attention away from urgency. The deep universe contains places where water has all the time it needs to move, adjust, and settle. Thinking about this can help thoughts loosen their grip on quick outcomes. The hidden oceans remind us that important processes often work best when given long stretches of quiet time, unfolding calmly without pressure or interruption. In this stillness, patience becomes natural, and the mind finds space to rest without expectation or demand while time stretches gently on there. Another calming fact about subsurface oceans is that their movement is driven by tiny differences in temperature rather than force. Warm water rises slowly, cool water sinks just as slowly, creating soft circulation that can take hundreds of years to complete a single cycle. There are no crashing currents or sudden surges. Everything happens gently. On Earth, water moves quickly because sunlight, wind, and terrain push it forward. Beneath ice, those influences are absent. Water listens only to gravity and heat. For the listener, this creates a soothing contrast. Imagine a current so slow it would be impossible to feel, even if you were floating within it. The water would not pull or toss. It would simply carry, almost unnoticed. This kind of motion supports stability. It allows chemistry and temperature to remain balanced over immense time. Another gentle truth is that slow-moving water holds heat more evenly, preventing sharp changes that could disrupt the environment. As you picture this gradual circulation, notice how it encourages a sense of patience. There is no finish line. The movement exists for its own sake. Thoughts can follow this example, drifting instead of racing. The idea of water that never rushes invites the nervous system to soften. It suggests that not everything important needs momentum. Some things remain healthy because they move slowly enough to stay whole, steady, and undisturbed. In that slowness, calm endurance forms quietly, shaping environments that last far longer than urgency ever could over deep, unmeasured spans of time. Water beneath ice also moves slowly because the space it occupies is enclosed and protected. One interesting fact is that pressure beneath thick ice suppresses turbulence, keeping water calm and orderly. Without open surfaces, waves cannot form, and without wind, nothing stirs the water suddenly. Motion becomes layered and smooth. For the listener, this enclosed environment can feel comforting. It is like being wrapped in insulation where outside disturbances cannot reach. Water here does not react. It responds. Over long periods, this gentle motion allows minerals and heat to distribute evenly. This balance supports consistency rather than change. Imagine standing still while time passes unnoticed, and you begin to understand how this water exists. There is no signal to hurry. Another calming truth is that slow-moving water tends to preserve its surroundings. Erosion happens at an almost invisible pace. Structures remain intact. As you picture this protected ocean, notice how the absence of urgency reduces tension. The environment does not demand adaptation every moment. It allows systems to settle into patterns that repeat quietly. Thoughts can mirror this behavior, settling instead of shifting rapidly. The idea of water moving just enough, but never too much, offers a model for calm persistence across immense time. This steadiness protects what lies within, allowing conditions to remain gentle, predictable, and supportive without sudden disruption or forced change over long cycles that feel almost motionless when viewed from any single moment of awareness and attention drifting quietly through deep time itself without resistance present. Another gentle fact about slow-moving subsurface water is that it changes temperature very gradually. Heat spreads slowly through water, especially when movement is minimal. This prevents sharp contrasts and keeps the environment stable. For the listener, this slow exchange can feel deeply reassuring. Nothing overheats. Nothing cools too quickly. The system stays balanced because change is shared evenly over time. Imagine warmth rising softly from below and meeting cooler layers near the ice, blending rather than colliding. This blending creates harmony. It supports long-term calm. On icy moons, this process can continue for millions of years without interruption. Water does not forget its rhythm. It repeats it quietly. As you imagine this slow thermal movement, notice how it invites patience. There is no sudden shift to respond to. The body and mind can relax when they sense stability. Another calming truth is that slow water movement reduces stress on the surrounding ice, preventing cracking or collapse. The entire system works together gently. Holding this image helps thoughts slow their pace. You are reminded that calm environments are built through gradual adjustment, not rapid reaction. Water beneath ice shows how softness and persistence can support endurance across deep time. Each layer responds with care, passing energy along like a shared responsibility rather than a burden. This cooperation allows quiet stability to persist even as ages pass unnoticed without drama, urgency, or disruption of the larger balance surrounding everything within that hidden ocean world far below silent ice and distant starlight above. Water moving slowly also allows time for chemistry to unfold gently. One interesting fact is that slow circulation gives dissolved materials time to interact without disruption. Reactions proceed quietly, shaped by patience rather than force. For the listener, this suggests a world where nothing is rushed into becoming something else. Processes are allowed to finish. This creates reliability. Imagine particles drifting together over long periods, meeting, separating, and meeting again without urgency. There is no pressure to arrive at an outcome. Another calming truth is that slow water movement reduces noise and vibration, creating an environment of near total silence. Without turbulence, the ocean remains acoustically calm. This silence supports stability. As you imagine this quiet chemistry unfolding, notice how the absence of sound feels comforting rather than empty. The water does not announce its changes. It simply continues. This can help the mind release the habit of constant stimulation. Water beneath ice shows that meaningful change often happens quietly. You do not need to witness it for it to matter. Holding this image encourages trust in slow processes, reminding awareness that patience allows systems to remain whole and undisturbed. Over immense spans of time, these gentle interactions build environments that feel calm, complete, and quietly enduring. They do not demand attention, explanation, or urgency to justify their existence remaining stable simply because nothing forces them to change quickly and time itself moves patiently alongside every quiet reaction deep within insulated ocean layers far removed from surface chaos and noise. As we stay with the image of slow-moving water, one final gentle fact brings the idea into focus. Water beneath ice teaches patience through its refusal to hurry. It moves only as much as necessary, guided by balance rather than urgency. For the listener, this offers a quiet lesson. Rest does not mean stopping completely. It means moving at a pace that supports stability. The hidden oceans show that slowness is not absence. It is care. Over deep time, water reshapes environments without force, allowing conditions to remain supportive and calm. Imagine this motion continuing long after attention drifts away, unchanged by observation. The water does not need witnesses. It continues because it can. Holding this idea helps awareness soften. You are allowed to slow. Nothing is waiting to be rushed. Like the water beneath ice, thoughts can drift gently, adjusting gradually, finding balance without effort. The universe holds places where patience is the natural state, and water moving slowly becomes a quiet guide toward rest. In those places, change happens without strain, and continuity feels more important than progress. This perspective invites the mind to loosen its grip on speed and allow calm presence to remain as time passes quietly, layer by layer, beneath protective ice and endless darkness where motion is slow, dependable, and endlessly patient in its steady unfolding, mirroring the rhythm of rest. The listener is gently invited to share as awareness continues drifting without effort or expectation into the calm flow of deep time itself. Darkness beneath the ice of distant moons is not something that arrives suddenly or dramatically. It is simply always there, steady and unchanged, and that constancy can feel deeply comforting when imagined slowly. One gentle fact is that these hidden oceans have likely never seen sunlight, not once in their long existence. Thick ice blocks all light, creating an environment where brightness is not expected or missed. There are no shadows shifting, no sudden changes between day and night. Darkness becomes the natural state rather than an absence. For the listener, this reframing can ease tension. Darkness here does not signal danger. It signals stability. Without light, nothing startles or interrupts. The environment remains calm and predictable. As you imagine this endless darkness, notice how it feels smooth and even, like a soft blanket rather than an empty void. The mind does not need to adjust or scan for detail. It can rest. This kind of darkness removes pressure. There is nothing to watch, nothing to anticipate. Time stretches gently when light is absent. Another calming truth is that without sunlight, temperature remains steady, further supporting balance. Darkness protects the ocean beneath, shielding it from sudden change. Holding this image allows awareness to relax into the idea that not seeing everything can be safe. In the deep universe, there are places where darkness has always been home, offering quiet consistency rather than fear, and that constancy invites the mind to slow, soften, and settle naturally without resistance. Another comforting fact about darkness beneath ice is that life, if it exists there, would never have evolved to depend on light in the first place. On Earth, darkness often feels unsettling because we are used to seeing. But in these hidden oceans, darkness is normal. It is not a loss. It is simply how things are. For the listener, this shifts perspective gently. Imagine a world where nothing expects brightness, where senses are shaped around touch, chemistry, and slow movement instead of vision. Darkness becomes neutral. It does not hide danger. It removes distraction. Without light, there is no visual noise, no flicker, no sudden movement to react to. The environment remains steady. Another gentle truth is that darkness reduces energy demand. Without light-driven cycles, systems do not rush. Everything unfolds slowly. This supports calm endurance. As you imagine this lightless ocean, notice how the absence of visual detail allows your thoughts to blur softly rather than sharpen. There is nothing to focus on, and that can be restful. Darkness here is not an ending. It is a background. It holds space rather than closing it off. This kind of darkness allows attention to spread evenly instead of narrowing. The mind can drift without needing to orient itself. In these hidden oceans, darkness has always been a companion, quietly supporting balance and continuity over immense time, offering a model of calm existence that does not rely on illumination to feel whole or safe. Darkness beneath ice also protects these oceans from external disturbance. One important fact is that light often brings energy, and energy brings change. On Earth, sunlight drives weather, storms, and rapid cycles. Beneath ice, Darkness blocks those forces completely. This creates an environment insulated from surface chaos. For the listener, this can feel reassuring. Imagine being shielded from noise and disruption, held in a place where nothing arrives suddenly. Darkness acts as a barrier, keeping conditions gentle and predictable. Another calming truth is that without light, there is no daily rhythm forcing activity. There is no morning or night. Time becomes less segmented. This allows processes to unfold at their own pace without being reset constantly. As you imagine this timeless darkness, notice how the absence of cycles feels freeing rather than disorienting. There is no schedule to follow. The environment does not demand action at specific moments. This supports deep calm. Darkness here is not something to move through. It is something to remain within. It offers continuity. Holding this image can help the mind release its attachment to constant change. You are reminded that stability does not require stimulation. The universe contains places where darkness preserves calm by keeping everything slow, even, and protected from sudden shifts, allowing existence to continue quietly, uninterrupted by external forces or expectations. Another gentle fact about darkness in these hidden oceans is that it reduces stress on the environment itself. Light can create sharp contrasts between warm and cold, active and inactive. Darkness smooths those contrasts away. Temperature changes happen gradually. Chemical reactions proceed evenly. For the listener, this suggests a world without extremes. Nothing spikes. Nothing crashes. Darkness supports moderation. As you imagine this environment, notice how the lack of contrast feels soothing. There are no bright highlights or deep shadows competing for attention. Everything blends softly. This visual uniformity, even when imagined, encourages mental rest. Another calming truth is that darkness allows energy to be conserved. Without light-driven processes, systems rely on slow internal sources of warmth and motion. This reduces strain. Everything operates within gentle limits. As you picture water moving slowly in complete darkness, notice how the scene feels contained and safe. There is no urgency to react to what cannot be seen. The mind can stop scanning for threats. Darkness here is not something to overcome. It is something that allows stability to exist without effort. Holding this idea can help awareness soften around uncertainty. You do not need full visibility to feel secure. The deep past and distant worlds remind us that darkness can be a place of rest, where nothing demands attention and everything continues quietly, supported by balance rather than brightness. Darkness also changes how we think about presence and awareness. One interesting fact is that in total darkness, awareness shifts inward rather than outward. There is less to process, less to interpret. For the listener, this mirrors the experience of closing your eyes and feeling the body settle. Darkness invites internal calm. Beneath ice, this inward focus would be constant. Nothing pulls attention outward. This supports long-term stability. Another gentle truth is that darkness removes the illusion of constant motion. Without visual cues, movement feels slower, even when it is happening. This can be deeply soothing. As you imagine drifting in a dark, silent ocean, notice how time seems to stretch. Moments do not rush past. They linger. Darkness allows this lingering. It creates space for patience. The environment does not ask for engagement. It allows presence without effort. Holding this image can help the mind relax its grip on control. You do not need to monitor or manage what you cannot see. Darkness beneath ice teaches trust. Systems continue without observation. Balance does not require supervision. This understanding can ease mental tension. The universe holds places where darkness supports calm awareness simply by removing distraction, allowing existence to unfold quietly and steadily over immense spans of time without interruption or demand. As we remain with this idea of darkness, one final gentle fact brings it fully into view. Darkness beneath ice is not a temporary condition. It is a permanent one, and that permanence creates safety. There is no sudden loss of light because light was never there to begin with. For the listener, this can feel deeply reassuring. Fear often comes from change, not from consistency. Darkness here does not change. It holds steady. This steadiness allows everything within it to adapt fully and remain balanced. Imagine an environment that has never known brightness and therefore never needs to adjust to its absence. This creates peace. As you let this image settle, notice how the mind responds to the idea of something unchanging. There is relief in knowing nothing unexpected will arrive. Darkness becomes a form of protection, not threat. It shields, insulates, and preserves. The hidden oceans remind us that calm does not always come from clarity. Sometimes it comes from constancy. You do not need to see ahead to feel safe. You only need to know that the environment will not surprise you. In that way, darkness beneath ice becomes a quiet guide toward rest, offering stability through its refusal to change, allowing awareness to drift gently within a world where nothing rushes, nothing startles, and nothing demands attention, as deep time continues its patient unfolding in complete, steady darkness. Energy beneath the ice of distant moons does not arrive with sparks, flames, or sudden force. It exists quietly, working in the background so slowly that it can be easy to forget it is there at all. One gentle fact is that chemical energy does not depend on sunlight or rapid reactions. It comes from simple interactions between water, rock, and dissolved materials, unfolding gradually over immense spans of time. These processes do not rush because they do not need to. They operate steadily, producing small amounts of energy continuously rather than large bursts all at once. For the listener, this idea can feel deeply calming. It suggests a kind of support that never demands attention. Energy here does not surge or collapse. It remains available, dependable, and patient. Imagine an ocean where warmth and motion are sustained not by dramatic events, but by countless tiny exchanges happening quietly, moment after moment. This kind of energy creates stability rather than excitement. There is no countdown, no peak, no finish line. Everything simply continues. As you picture this slow chemical motion beneath thick ice, notice how the absence of urgency allows your thoughts to soften. Nothing is racing toward an outcome. The environment does not push forward. It holds its place. Energy that never rushes creates a rhythm that is gentle and forgiving, inviting awareness to slow down and rest within a world where support arrives steadily, without noise or demand. Another calming truth about chemical energy is how long it can last when allowed to move slowly. One important fact is that these energy sources can operate for billions of years without wearing out. Because they rely on gradual reactions, they do not burn through resources quickly. Instead, they sip from them patiently. This creates continuity. For the listener, this offers reassurance. The idea that something can continue quietly for such long periods removes pressure. There is no sense of running out. Imagine an ocean warmed gently from below by slow reactions in rock, reactions so gradual that they barely change from 1 million years to the next. This steadiness allows systems to settle into balance. Nothing needs to hurry to take advantage of a moment. Energy remains available. Another gentle truth is that slow energy reduces stress on the environment. There are no sudden changes to adapt to, no spikes that demand immediate response. Everything has time to adjust naturally. As you imagine this slow flow of energy, notice how it mirrors calm breathing. It arrives, it leaves, and it continues. There is no effort required to maintain it. Holding this image can help the mind release urgency. Life, if present, would not need to chase energy. It would simply exist alongside it, supported by a background process that has no schedule and no endpoint, only quiet persistence over deep time. Chemical energy also invites us to rethink what strength looks like. One fascinating fact is that the most enduring energy systems in the universe are often the quietest. Explosions fade quickly. Slow reactions endure. Beneath icy moons, energy works like a steady heartbeat rather than a sudden jolt. For the listener, This reframing can feel comforting. Strength does not have to announce itself. It can remain subtle and still be reliable. Imagine water slowly interacting with rock at the ocean floor, releasing just enough warmth and chemical potential to sustain motion without ever overwhelming the environment. This gentle interaction supports stability. There is no drama to react to. The system remains calm. Another calming truth is that chemical energy spreads evenly rather than concentrating in one place. This reduces imbalance. Energy does not rush toward a single point. It diffuses slowly, creating uniform conditions. As you picture this even distribution, notice how it feels soothing. There are no hotspots demanding attention. Everything remains balanced. This balance allows awareness to rest. You are not waiting for something to happen. It already is happening quietly. The deep universe reminds us that lasting support often comes from processes that are too slow to notice in the moment. Chemical energy beneath ice offers that kind of support, allowing time to stretch wide and patient, carrying everything forward without strain. Another gentle fact about this slow energy is that it encourages patience in anything that depends on it. One important truth is that chemical reactions beneath ice do not respond to short-term changes. They are shaped by deep conditions that remain constant for long periods. This creates resilience. For the listener, this can feel grounding. It suggests an environment that is not easily disturbed. Imagine a system that continues calmly even as surface conditions shift far above. Ice may crack or move slightly, but the energy below remains steady. This separation from surface events creates safety. Nothing urgent travels downward. The environment below is insulated from noise and interruption. As you imagine this, notice how the idea of insulation feels protective. The slow energy beneath ice does not react to sudden changes because it does not need to. It has time. This teaches a quiet lesson. Not everything requires immediate response. Some things benefit from waiting. Holding this image can help awareness release the habit of reacting quickly. The deep past and distant worlds show that patience is not inactivity. It is a form of strength. Chemical energy supports this strength by moving slowly enough to allow everything else to settle into rhythm. There is no rush to produce results. Existence itself becomes the outcome, unfolding gently without demand. Chemical energy also creates a sense of quiet independence from external cycles. One fascinating fact is that these energy sources do not rely on day, night, or seasons. They continue regardless of surface conditions. For the listener, this removes another layer of urgency. There is no schedule to follow. Energy availability does not rise and fall sharply. It remains constant. Imagine an ocean where warmth and motion persist even if the surface above is locked in eternal night. This independence creates calm. Life, if present, would not need to hurry to take advantage of brief windows. Everything would unfold at its own pace. Another calming truth is that slow energy encourages efficiency rather than excess. Systems that rely on gradual input tend to use resources carefully. Nothing is wasted. This careful use supports longevity. As you picture this careful balance, notice how it feels orderly and gentle. There is no push toward more. There is only enough. This sense of sufficiency can be deeply soothing. It suggests that needs can be met without struggle. The universe offers examples of systems that thrive not by accelerating, but by remaining steady. Chemical energy beneath ice is one of those examples, quietly supporting continuity over immense time, allowing awareness to relax into the idea that support does not need to be loud or fast to be effective. As we remain with this image of energy that never rushes, one final fact brings the idea together softly. Chemical energy beneath icy moons has likely been present since those moons formed, continuing without interruption through eons of change. It has no awareness of beginnings or endings. It simply continues. For the listener, this continuity can feel deeply reassuring. It suggests that some forms of support exist beyond events, beyond moments of crisis or excitement. Imagine energy flowing gently for billions of years, unaffected by surface chaos, unaffected by expectation. This kind of endurance invites rest. There is nothing to anticipate, nothing to fear losing suddenly. Energy remains available, patient, and calm. As you allow this idea to settle, notice how your thoughts slow. The need to hurry fades. The deep universe reminds us that some of the most important processes happen quietly, without recognition. Chemical energy beneath ice offers a model of calm persistence. It does not rush toward outcomes. It does not demand attention. It simply supports existence, moment after moment, across stretches of time so long they feel almost still, allowing everything that depends on it to move gently, patiently, and without strain as the story of these hidden oceans continues to unfold. When people think about life beyond Earth, the idea often arrives with excitement, urgency, and the hope of sudden discovery. But on distant icy moons, life would not announce itself that way. One gentle fact to begin with is that any life beneath thick ice would exist quietly, without witnesses, unfolding far from sunlight and noise. It would not need to be complex or advanced to matter. It could be simple, small, and slow, shaped by its surroundings over immense spans of time. This possibility does not ask to be proven quickly. It asks only to be considered patiently. For the listener, this framing can feel calming. Life here is not a headline or a race. It is a background presence, something that may or may not exist, and either way, the universe remains steady. Scientists look for conditions that could support life, not because they expect immediate answers, but because those conditions tell a story about balance. Liquid water, gentle energy, and time are enough to begin imagining life as a soft possibility. As you picture a dark ocean beneath ice, notice how the idea of life feels different when stripped of urgency. It does not rush toward complexity. It does not need to evolve quickly. It simply adapts slowly, if it exists at all. Holding this idea gently allows the mind to relax. There is no pressure to decide. The deep universe invites curiosity without demand, offering space for quiet wonder rather than expectation. Another calming truth about life as a possibility is how little it requires to begin. One important fact is that on Earth, life appeared relatively early, likely when conditions were stable enough, not when they were dramatic. This suggests that life does not need extreme environments or constant change. It needs consistency. Beneath icy moons, conditions would remain remarkably stable for millions or even billions of years. Temperature changes would be minimal. Energy would arrive slowly. Water would move gently. For the listener, this paints a picture of patience rather than urgency. Life, if present, would not be fighting to survive. It would simply exist within a supportive environment. Another gentle fact is that life does not need light. On Earth, entire ecosystems thrive in darkness, supported by chemical energy rather than sunlight. These systems operate quietly, with organisms that grow slowly and interact gently. This removes the idea that life must be active or visible to matter. As you imagine similar conditions beneath ice, notice how the possibility of life feels calm and unthreatening. There is no invasion, no discovery moment breaking the silence. There is only continuity. This perspective allows the mind to rest. Whether life exists or not, the environment itself remains meaningful. It tells a story of balance, patience, and the ability of the universe to support gentle processes over time. Life becomes one possible expression of that balance, not a requirement or a goal. The pace at which life would develop beneath ice also reinforces calm rather than excitement. One fascinating fact is that without sunlight and with limited energy, any life would likely grow and change very slowly. Generations might pass over thousands of years rather than decades. Adaptation would be gradual, almost imperceptible. For the listener, this slow pace can feel reassuring. There is no sudden leap forward, no competition to dominate. Life, if present, would settle into its environment rather than reshape it dramatically. Another calming truth is that such slow systems tend to be resilient. Because they are not built on rapid change, they are less vulnerable to disruption. Stability supports endurance. As you imagine life unfolding at this pace, notice how it mirrors deep breathing or slow currents. Everything moves gently. Nothing is forced. This removes pressure from the idea of life itself. It does not need to achieve anything. It does not need to become complex. Its value lies in its quiet persistence. Holding this image can help release the habit of measuring worth by activity or speed. The deep universe offers examples of existence that is meaningful simply because it continues. Life as a soft possibility fits naturally into this view. It becomes part of a larger pattern of slow unfolding, where patience is rewarded with continuity rather than sudden change. Another important fact about discussing life this way is that it respects uncertainty rather than trying to erase it. Scientists do not claim that life exists beneath icy moons. They observe conditions that could support it and leave space for the unknown. This approach itself is calming. It does not demand answers. It allows questions to remain open. For the listener, this can feel like permission to let go of the need for certainty. The universe does not require us to resolve every mystery. Some possibilities can remain just that. Another gentle truth is that uncertainty does not mean emptiness. A place can be full of meaning even if we never confirm what exists there. The oceans beneath ice are already remarkable because of their scale, stability, and endurance. Life would be an addition, not a requirement. As you imagine these vast hidden oceans, notice how the unknown feels different when framed softly. It is not threatening. It is spacious. It allows the mind to wander without pressure. This kind of uncertainty invites rest rather than anxiety. The deep past and distant worlds remind us that not knowing everything has always been part of existence. Life as a possibility fits comfortably within that tradition. It does not push forward demanding recognition. It waits quietly, if it exists at all, unfolding at a pace that does not disturb the calm of its surroundings. Life beneath ice would also be deeply shaped by its environment, reinforcing harmony rather than conflict. One fascinating fact is that in stable, low-energy systems, life tends to form simple relationships that recycle resources efficiently. Nothing is wasted. Movement is minimal. Growth is balanced by restraint. For the listener, this suggests a peaceful form of existence. Life would not spread aggressively. It would remain contained, shaped by limits that encourage balance. Another calming truth is that such life would likely be isolated from the rest of the universe, protected by thick ice from radiation and surface chaos. This isolation creates safety. It allows processes to continue undisturbed. As you imagine this, notice how the idea of protection feels comforting rather than confining. The ice becomes a shelter, not a barrier. Life, if present, would not be exposed to constant change. It would not need to react quickly. This environment rewards patience. Holding this image can help the mind settle. It shows that existence does not require constant interaction or expansion to be meaningful. Sometimes, remaining small, contained, and steady is enough. Life as a soft possibility aligns with this idea perfectly. It exists not to be discovered, but to continue quietly, supported by an environment that values consistency over excitement. As we remain with this gentle framing, one final fact helps bring the idea of life into balance. Even if life never existed beneath icy moons, the conditions themselves still tell a story about the universe's capacity for calm complexity. The presence of water, energy, and time working together quietly is meaningful on its own. For the listener, this perspective removes disappointment. The value is not in confirmation, but in contemplation. Life as a possibility invites wonder without expectation. It allows curiosity to exist alongside rest. As you imagine these hidden oceans continuing in darkness, with or without life, notice how the scene remains peaceful either way. Nothing changes suddenly. Nothing needs to be resolved. the universe continues its slow work, shaping environments that could support life, even if that life remains hypothetical. This gentle openness allows the mind to relax fully. There is no answer coming that will disrupt the calm. There is only the steady presence of time, water, and energy moving quietly beneath ice. Life, if it exists, unfolds softly within that presence. And if it does not, the quiet remains just as complete, holding space for rest, curiosity, and the comfort of knowing that not all possibilities need to become realities to be meaningful. Time behaves differently around distant moons, and nowhere is this more apparent than in the slow, reliable rhythm of orbits. One gentle fact to begin with is that moons move through space in steady, repeating paths that rarely change. Each orbit follows the same curve again and again, guided by gravity rather than intention. This repetition creates a natural sense of order. For the listener, imagining a moon circling its planet can feel grounding. There is no decision being made, no variation from day to day. The motion continues whether anyone is watching or not. Another calming truth is that these orbits can last for billions of years with very little change. The same path traced today may have been traced long before Earth formed. This kind of time is not measured in minutes or hours, but in cycles that repeat endlessly. As you picture a moon moving quietly through darkness, notice how predictable the motion feels. There is no rush to arrive anywhere. The journey itself is the pattern. Orbits offer reassurance because they do not surprise. They do not speed up or slow down suddenly. Gravity keeps everything moving at a pace that remains consistent over immense time. Holding this image gently can help the mind settle. It replaces the idea of time as something that runs out with time as something that returns. Each orbit brings the moon back to where it has been before, creating familiarity even in the vastness of space. Another important fact about orbital time is how it creates natural rhythms without effort. Moons do not need clocks to keep track of their movement. Their paths are set by balance between motion and gravity. This balance produces cycles that repeat with remarkable precision. For the listener, this suggests a form of timekeeping that does not rely on awareness or control. Time unfolds on its own. Some moons take just a few days to complete an orbit, while others take weeks or months. No matter the length, each cycle remains stable. This stability can feel deeply calming. It suggests that time does not need to be managed to be meaningful. As you imagine these cycles repeating quietly, notice how the idea of deadlines begins to fade. Orbital time does not hurry. It does not accumulate pressure. It simply continues. Another gentle truth is that these repeating motions influence everything else on the moon, from internal heating to surface patterns. Time and motion are connected in a way that supports continuity. The moon does not need to react to each orbit. It exists within the rhythm. Holding this idea can help the listener release the habit of watching the clock. Instead of counting moments as they pass, awareness can rest in the idea of return. What has happened will happen again, not as repetition without meaning, but as reassurance that motion itself can be predictable and safe. Orbits also help redefine what we mean by duration. One fascinating fact is that many moons are locked in a state where the same side always faces their planet. This is called tidal locking, and it happens slowly over time. Once it occurs, the moon's rotation and orbit match perfectly, creating an unchanging relationship. For the listener, this can feel deeply comforting. There is no constant turning, no shifting orientation. One side remains familiar, always facing the same direction. This reduces variation and creates long-term stability. Another calming truth is that tidal locking happens naturally, without force. It is the result of gentle gravitational interaction over immense time. Nothing sudden occurs. The moon gradually settles into its rhythm. This reinforces the idea that change does not need to be abrupt. It can arrive through patience. As you imagine a moon showing the same face to its planet for millions of years, notice how steady that relationship feels. There is no need to adjust or respond. Everything has found its place. This kind of time is not counted forward. It is held in balance. Holding this image can help the mind relax into consistency. You are reminded that some relationships in the universe are not temporary or rushed. They are sustained through repetition and trust in predictable motion, allowing awareness to rest without anticipating disruption. Another gentle aspect of orbital time is how it layers cycles within cycles. One important fact is that moons often follow predictable patterns not only around their planet, but also in relation to other moons. These interactions can create repeating alignments that happen on regular schedules. For the listener, this adds a sense of harmony. Multiple motions work together without conflict. Each cycle fits within a larger one. This nested rhythm mirrors breathing or heartbeats, where smaller patterns exist within broader ones. As you imagine these layered orbits, notice how complex motion can still feel calm when it is predictable. Nothing collides. Nothing interrupts suddenly. The universe maintains spacing and timing naturally. Another calming truth is that these repeating alignments often take years or decades to complete, further stretching the sense of time. There is no hurry for the pattern to finish. It will come around again. This perspective can help the mind loosen its grip on short-term thinking. Time does not always move toward an endpoint. Sometimes it moves in circles that offer reassurance through familiarity. Holding this image can create a feeling of being supported by structure. Even in vast space, motion follows quiet rules. The repetition of orbits becomes a steady background presence, allowing awareness to settle into a rhythm that feels endless rather than fleeting. Orbital time also shapes the internal life of moons in subtle ways. One fascinating fact is that repeating gravitational pulls occur at the same points in each orbit, creating gentle, regular flexing inside the moon. This repetition means internal processes are not random. They follow schedules set by motion. For the listener, this reinforces the idea that time can be felt rather than measured. The moon does not count its orbits, but its interior responds to them all the same. This creates a sense of reliability. Energy arrives when expected. Movement repeats. Nothing needs to be monitored. As you imagine these internal rhythms continuing with each orbit, notice how predictable they feel. There is no buildup toward urgency. Each cycle delivers what it always has. Another calming truth is that these processes can continue for billions of years without exhaustion. Orbits do not wear out quickly. They are sustained by balance. Holding this idea can help release anxiety about time passing. Time does not always mean loss. In orbital motion, time means continuity. Each cycle reinforces the last. Awareness can rest in this understanding. You are not being carried toward an end, but around a path that has always existed and will continue long after the present moment fades. As we remain with the idea of time measured in orbits, one final fact brings the feeling of calm into focus. Orbital motion does not depend on awareness, memory, or intention. It continues whether observed or not. This removes pressure from the present moment. Nothing needs attention to keep going. For the listener, this can feel deeply reassuring. You do not need to hold time together. It holds itself. The moon will continue its path whether you watch or rest. As you imagine a distant moon completing another quiet orbit in darkness, notice how the scene feels complete. Nothing is missing. Nothing needs to happen next. Time is not waiting for instruction. It is already moving in a way that has proven stable across ages. This understanding allows awareness to soften. You can rest within motion rather than resist it. The universe demonstrates that endless movement can be gentle, predictable, and safe. Orbits show that time does not always rush forward. Sometimes it circles back, offering familiarity instead of urgency. Holding this image, the mind can remain settled, guided by the quiet reassurance that motion does not have to feel like pressure, and that time itself can be a steady companion, repeating softly, endlessly, without asking anything of you. When imagining oceans hidden beneath miles of ice, one of the most calming ideas is that these places experience no seasons and no weather at all. One important fact is that sunlight never reaches these oceans, which means there are no day and night cycles to create temperature changes. Without sunlight, there is no warming and cooling pattern, no summer or winter, and no shifting skies. Everything remains steady. This absence of variation removes the cause of storms, winds, and surface disruption. For the listener, this can feel deeply reassuring. A place without seasons is a place without surprises. Time passes, but conditions remain nearly the same. Another gentle truth is that the thick ice above these oceans acts like insulation, keeping temperatures stable over immense periods. While Earth's oceans respond constantly to the atmosphere above them, these hidden oceans are sealed away from such influence. Nothing stirs them suddenly. Nothing disturbs them without warning. As you picture this environment, notice how the idea of calm becomes physical. There is no need to anticipate change. There is no buildup toward anything dramatic. The ocean exists in a long, quiet balance. This kind of stillness invites the mind to relax. Without weather patterns, there are no forecasts, no shifts to prepare for, and no cycles to track. Everything simply remains. Holding this image gently can help awareness release tension, settling into a world where stability is the default and change, when it happens, unfolds so slowly that it never feels disruptive or urgent at all. Another calming fact about these hidden oceans is that they are not shaped by winds or waves. On Earth, ocean surfaces are constantly in motion because air moves above them. Wind transfers energy, creating ripples, swells, and storms. Beneath thick ice, this interaction does not exist. There is no atmosphere touching the water directly. The ocean remains smooth and undisturbed at its upper boundary. For the listener, this creates a powerful sense of quiet. Imagine water that never crashes against a shore and never rises into violent motion. The surface is protected and sealed, allowing movement below to remain slow and even. Another gentle truth is that without waves, there is no erosion shaping the environment rapidly. Change happens through gradual internal processes rather than surface agitation. This means the ocean floor and the water above it evolves patiently. Nothing is worn down quickly. Nothing is forced. As you imagine this sealed ocean, notice how the absence of surface motion removes a layer of noise from the picture. There is no constant activity demanding attention. The environment does not signal urgency. It does not fluctuate. This can feel deeply comforting. It suggests a place where energy is conserved rather than scattered. The lack of weather creates a sense of protection, as if the ocean is held in a steady embrace. Holding this image can help the mind slow further, releasing the habit of expecting disturbance. In this world, calm is not temporary. It is continuous, dependable, and quietly sustained over time. Temperature stability is another important aspect of these oceans that supports emotional calm. One fascinating fact is that beneath thick ice, water temperatures change extremely slowly, if they change at all. The ice layer above acts as a barrier, preventing heat from escaping quickly and blocking sudden cooling from space. This creates a nearly constant thermal environment. For the listener, this idea can feel soothing. There are no sudden chills or warm spells. The water remains within a narrow range for millions of years. This kind of consistency supports gentle internal rhythms. Another calming truth is that without seasons, biological processes, if they exist, would not need to adjust constantly. There would be no cycles of abundance followed by scarcity driven by climate. Everything would unfold at a measured pace. As you picture this steady temperature, notice how the mind responds. There is no need to brace for extremes. Stability becomes something you can rest within. On Earth, much stress comes from rapid change. In these hidden oceans, change is rare and slow. This reduces the need for alertness. The environment does not demand quick reactions. It allows time to stretch out comfortably. Holding this image can help awareness relax deeply. The absence of temperature swings removes another layer of uncertainty. Life, if present, would not rush. The ocean itself does not rush. Everything remains balanced, supported by gentle heat from within and insulation from above, creating a space where calm is not fragile, but enduring. Another gentle fact is that these oceans are untouched by precipitation of any kind. There is no rain, snow, or ice falling through the water column. On Earth, precipitation constantly refreshes and disturbs the ocean surface, introducing variability. Beneath thick ice, this process does not occur. The water remains isolated from such input. For the listener, this creates a sense of quiet enclosure. Nothing arrives suddenly from above. The ocean exists as a closed system, slowly adjusting only to internal forces. Another calming truth is that without rainfall or snowfall, chemical conditions change gradually rather than abruptly. This supports long-term stability. The environment does not experience sudden dilution or concentration. Everything moves toward balance naturally. As you imagine this sealed ocean, notice how the absence of falling water removes another source of noise and motion. There is nothing splashing, nothing breaking the surface. The environment remains uninterrupted. This can feel deeply peaceful. It suggests a place where nothing intrudes unexpectedly. The deep past of these oceans has likely looked much the same for millions of years. Holding this image can help the mind release the expectation of interruption. In this world, nothing interrupts. Everything continues quietly, guided by slow processes that unfold without drama. The ocean becomes a place defined not by events, but by continuity, allowing awareness to settle into a steady, unchanging rhythm. The lack of seasons also means that time itself feels different in these hidden oceans. One important fact is that without seasonal markers, there is no natural division of the year. Time is not segmented into cycles of change. Instead, it flows continuously. For the listener, this can feel grounding. Time does not hurry forward toward the next phase. It simply passes. Another calming truth is that without seasonal stress, systems can remain in equilibrium for long periods. There is no need to prepare for winter or recover from summer. Everything remains in balance. As you imagine time moving in this environment, notice how it feels less demanding. There are no deadlines imposed by nature. The ocean does not count time in dramatic shifts. It exists in a long present. This perspective can help the mind loosen its grip on schedules and expectations. The deep past of these oceans likely contains vast stretches where nothing noticeable changed. That kind of time invites rest. It does not pressure awareness to keep up. Holding this image can help the listener feel supported by the idea that time does not always require measurement. Sometimes, time simply holds space. In this world, time is not something that passes quickly. It is something that remains, allowing everything within it to unfold slowly, without urgency or strain. As these elements come together, one final fact reinforces the sense of emotional stability these oceans represent. Without seasons, weather, or surface disturbance, the environment remains predictable across unimaginable spans of time. This predictability reduces stress on every level. Nothing needs to adapt quickly. Nothing is forced to respond to sudden change. For the listener, this creates a profound sense of safety. The ocean does not surprise. It does not challenge. It simply exists. As you imagine this hidden world continuing quietly beneath ice, notice how the absence of disruption feels almost protective. The ice shields the ocean not only from space, but from chaos. Everything inside unfolds slowly, guided by gentle internal processes rather than external pressure. This stability allows thoughts to slow naturally. There is no need to remain alert. Nothing demands attention. The environment itself invites rest. Holding this image can help awareness sink deeper into calm. The hidden ocean becomes a symbol of steadiness, showing that a world can exist without constant change and still remain complete. In this place, Calm is not something to achieve. It is the natural state, sustained patiently over immense time, allowing everything within it to remain balanced, supported, and quietly at ease as the long story of these distant moons continues without interruption. Some worlds in the universe change so slowly that change itself becomes almost meaningless. One calming fact about many icy moons is that their surfaces and interiors can remain largely the same for billions of years. Unlike Earth, where continents shift, climates swing, and landscapes are constantly reshaped, these moons exist in a state of near permanence. Their small size and distant position protect them from rapid geological activity. For the listener, this idea can feel deeply comforting. A place that does not change quickly offers mental spaciousness. There is no pressure to adapt, no urgency to respond. Another gentle truth is that many of these moons have no atmosphere to drive erosion or weather. Without wind or rain, their surfaces remain almost exactly as they were when they formed. Cracks in the ice can last for millions of years without widening or collapsing. As you picture this stillness, notice how the idea of time softens. Time here does not rush forward. It stretches wide and quiet. The moon exists without striving to become something else. It simply remains. This steadiness invites the mind to slow down. When nothing around you changes quickly, there is no need to track progress or anticipate outcomes. Holding this image can help awareness rest in the present moment, supported by the knowledge that some places in the universe are allowed to stay the same, holding their shape and rhythm gently across incomprehensible spans of time. Another calming fact about these slowly changing worlds is that their internal processes unfold at an almost unnoticeable pace. Inside many icy moons, heat moves gradually from deep layers toward the surface over millions of years. There are no sudden releases or bursts. Everything is moderated by thick ice and immense pressure. For the listener, this suggests a model of patience built into the structure of the world itself. Nothing is wasted. Energy moves carefully. Another gentle truth is that geological features on these moons can persist far longer than similar features on Earth. A ridge, fracture, or frozen flow may remain visible for billions of years without being erased. This kind of endurance reshapes how we think about time. Instead of seeing time as something that wears things away, here it becomes something that preserves. As you imagine standing on such a moon, notice how the absence of change feels stabilizing rather than empty. The landscape does not demand attention. It does not surprise you. It simply exists. This can feel deeply reassuring. The mind does not need to stay alert for sudden shifts. There is no urgency to interpret or react. Holding this image allows awareness to expand. In a world that does not change quickly, thoughts can settle without being interrupted. The moon remains as it is, offering a quiet lesson that endurance and stillness can be just as meaningful as motion, allowing time itself to feel spacious and unthreatening. The long-term stability of these moons also means their histories remain written clearly on their surfaces. One important fact is that impact craters on icy moons often remain visible for immense periods, acting like frozen memories. On Earth, craters are quickly erased by erosion, vegetation, and tectonic movement. On distant moons, they stay. For the listener, this creates a comforting sense of continuity. Nothing is forgotten quickly. The past is allowed to remain present. Another calming truth is that because change is so slow, scientists can read these surfaces like quiet records, tracing events that happened billions of years ago. This reinforces the idea that time does not always rush forward, leaving everything behind. Sometimes it holds. As you imagine these ancient surfaces, notice how the idea of permanence eases mental tension. There is no race against decay. Things are allowed to last. This can feel deeply grounding. In a world that moves slowly, there is no pressure to constantly update or replace. Everything remains usable, recognizable, and stable. Holding this image can help the listener release the modern habit of urgency. You do not need to keep up with rapid change here. The moon does not demand adaptation. It allows existence to unfold at its own pace. Time becomes a wide, open space rather than a narrow path, offering rest simply by being vast and unhurried. Another gentle fact is that these moons often remain locked in stable orbits for billions of years, repeating the same motions endlessly. Their paths around their planets do not wander significantly. Each orbit follows the last with remarkable precision. For the listener, this repetition can feel deeply soothing. Predictability creates safety. When motion is reliable, there is no need for vigilance. Another calming truth is that tidal forces, while present, act slowly and consistently rather than violently. They shape the moon over long periods without sudden disruption. This reinforces the idea that change does not need to arrive as an event. It can arrive as a whisper stretched across time. As you imagine a moon following the same path again and again, notice how the repetition feels comforting rather than boring. There is reassurance in knowing what comes next. The universe does not surprise these worlds. It holds them in steady patterns. This predictability allows everything within the moon to exist without constant adjustment. Holding this image can help awareness relax into routine without resistance. Repetition does not trap the moon. It supports it. In the same way, steady rhythms can support the mind. The deep past of these moons shows that repeating patterns can be a source of calm rather than confinement, allowing life, energy, and structure to persist quietly across unimaginable spans of time. The slow pace of change also means that these moons exist without dramatic endings. One important fact is that many icy moons have likely remained habitable beneath their ice for longer than complex life has existed on Earth. Their conditions do not collapse quickly. There are no sudden climate shifts or catastrophic cycles. For the listener, this can feel deeply reassuring. The future does not rush toward an edge. Another calming truth is that these moons are not driven by external chaos. Their stability comes from internal balance rather than constant reaction. As you imagine this long-lived equilibrium, notice how the idea removes pressure from time itself. There is no countdown, no approaching deadline. Everything unfolds slowly enough to be absorbed. This perspective can soften anxiety rooted in change. The universe contains places where nothing needs to hurry. Holding this image allows awareness to expand beyond immediate concerns. These worlds remind us that not everything is fragile. Some systems are built to last quietly. They do not announce themselves. They simply continue. The mind can rest within this idea, trusting that stability is possible without effort, and that time does not always erode what it touches. Sometimes time protects. As these thoughts settle, one final fact gently reinforces the spaciousness these worlds offer. Because they change so slowly, icy moons allow us to step outside human-scale time entirely. Their rhythms are measured in millions and billions of years, not minutes or days. For the listener, this creates emotional distance from urgency. Problems shrink. Pressure fades. The mind no longer needs to move quickly. These moons do not respond to haste. They exist independently of attention. As you imagine their steady presence continuing long after human history fades, notice how this thought feels freeing rather than unsettling. Nothing depends on immediate action. Everything has time. This vast patience allows awareness to rest without expectation. The moon does not ask anything of you. It does not require understanding. It simply remains. Holding this image can help the listener feel held by something larger and slower than thought. In a universe where some worlds barely change at all, there is room to breathe, to pause, and to exist without urgency, allowing the calm rhythm of deep time to continue carrying awareness forward gently, steadily, and without any need to arrive anywhere quickly at all. In the quiet study of distant moons, much of what we understand comes not from seeing, but from listening. One calming fact is that scientists cannot look directly into the oceans beneath ice. Instead, they rely on subtle signals that travel outward slowly. These signals do not announce themselves. They must be noticed patiently. Small changes in gravity, gentle shifts in motion, and faint variations in magnetic fields all offer clues. For the listener, this approach feels reassuring. Knowledge does not always arrive through clear images. Sometimes it comes through quiet patterns. Another gentle truth is that listening requires stillness. Instruments must remain steady. Observations must repeat over time. Nothing happens quickly. This reinforces a sense of trust in slow understanding. As you imagine scientists waiting calmly as data accumulates, notice how the idea removes pressure. There is no need to rush toward certainty. The universe does not respond to urgency. It responds to patience. Listening instead of seeing teaches us that presence matters more than proof. When we allow signals to arrive in their own time, they form a clearer picture than force ever could. Holding this image can help the mind relax into uncertainty without discomfort. The unseen does not mean unknowable. It simply means quiet. The deep past and distant worlds remind us that truth often moves gently, asking us to slow down enough to notice what is already there. One important way scientists listen to hidden oceans is through gravity itself. As moons orbit their planets, tiny variations in speed and direction reveal what lies beneath the surface. A moon with a liquid ocean behaves slightly differently than one made entirely of solid ice. These differences are incredibly small, but consistent. For the listener, this fact can feel grounding. Even when something is hidden, it still leaves an imprint. Nothing exists without influence. Another calming truth is that gravity does not lie. It cannot be disguised or altered by appearance. It responds only to mass and movement. This reliability builds quiet trust. Scientists do not need to see the ocean. They can feel its presence through motion alone. As you imagine a moon subtly stretching and relaxing as it orbits, notice how gentle the process feels. There is no shock or disruption. The moon responds naturally to forces that have acted upon it for billions of years. This slow dialogue between gravity and structure offers reassurance. It shows that listening does not require urgency. Patterns repeat patiently until they become clear. Holding this idea can help awareness soften. You do not need loud signals to understand something deeply. Sometimes the smallest changes, observed over time, reveal the most stable truths. The universe speaks quietly, and it rewards those willing to listen without rushing toward conclusions. Magnetic fields offer another gentle way scientists listen to these distant worlds. One fascinating fact is that moving saltwater beneath ice can interact with a planet's magnetic field, creating faint disturbances that instruments can detect. These disturbances are not dramatic. They are subtle and steady. For the listener, this reinforces the idea that presence can be known without visibility. The ocean does not shine or announce itself. It simply responds to forces around it. Another calming truth is that magnetic signals are predictable. They repeat in familiar patterns as the moon moves through space. This repetition allows scientists to listen carefully over many passes, building confidence slowly. There is no single moment of discovery. Understanding grows quietly. As you imagine invisible lines of magnetism flowing around a moon, notice how the image feels smooth and continuous. Nothing flickers or bursts. The signal remains calm. This method of listening teaches patience. It shows that truth does not need to arrive suddenly to be real. It can arrive gradually, confirmed again and again through consistency. Holding this image can help the listener trust slow knowing. Not everything meaningful needs to be seen clearly. Some things reveal themselves through steady response rather than display, encouraging a deeper, calmer way of understanding that unfolds without pressure. Surface features also speak quietly to those who listen carefully. One important fact is that cracks, ridges, and shifting ice patterns can hint at movement below, even when the surface itself appears still. These features do not form quickly. They develop over immense spans of time. For the listener, This creates a soothing sense of patience. Change leaves marks gently. Nothing is forced. Another calming truth is that scientists study these patterns repeatedly, comparing images taken years apart to notice the smallest shifts. This long-term observation mirrors the slow nature of the moons themselves. As you imagine ice plates drifting millimeters over centuries, notice how the idea slows perception. The surface becomes a quiet record of internal motion. Listening, in this sense, means noticing what has changed and what has not. This balance provides reassurance. Stability and movement coexist without conflict. Holding this image can help awareness relax. You do not need constant motion to indicate life. Sometimes movement is so slow it feels like stillness, yet it remains meaningful. The moons teach us that signals do not need to be loud or fast to carry information. They only need time and attention, allowing understanding to grow naturally without urgency. Even heat itself becomes something scientists listen to rather than see. One fascinating fact is that small variations in surface temperature can suggest warmth moving upward from below. These variations are faint and spread over large areas. For the listener, this reinforces the theme of gentleness. Heat does not rush. It seeps. Another calming truth is that these temperature differences remain stable over long periods, indicating a steady source rather than sudden activity. This steadiness builds confidence without excitement. As you imagine warmth slowly rising through thick ice, notice how the image feels comforting rather than alarming. The heat does not break through. It supports from below. This way of listening requires trust in gradual processes. Scientists must observe patiently, allowing patterns to confirm themselves. There is no single signal to chase. Understanding comes from alignment between many quiet indicators. Holding this idea can help the listener release the need for immediate clarity. Some truths reveal themselves only when we stop demanding visibility. The universe invites us to sense rather than see, to notice rather than react. In doing so, it offers a calmer way of knowing that unfolds without pressure or strain. As these methods come together, one final fact gently reinforces the value of listening. None of these discoveries rely on dramatic images or sudden proof. They rely on consistency, repetition, and trust in subtle signals. For the listener, this perspective can feel deeply reassuring. Knowledge does not require certainty to begin. It grows from careful attention. The hidden oceans beneath ice are known not because they were revealed, but because they responded. Gravity shifted. Magnetism changed. Ice moved slightly. Heat lingered. These responses form a quiet conversation between the moon and those who observe it. As you imagine this conversation continuing slowly across time, notice how the idea feels safe. Nothing demands urgency. Nothing insists on resolution. Understanding remains open, supported by patience rather than pressure. This way of listening allows space for uncertainty without fear. It shows that not seeing does not mean not knowing. Some of the most stable truths are felt rather than observed, arriving gently through patterns that repeat quietly, carrying awareness forward into a deeper, calmer trust in the unseen rhythms that shape the universe without ever needing to raise their voice. Returning briefly to our own moon helps ground everything we have imagined so far. It is a place we know well, yet it remains quiet, distant, and emotionally spacious. One gentle fact is that Earth's moon has no oceans, no atmosphere to carry sound, and no weather to disturb its surface. This absence creates a deep stillness that humans have felt for thousands of years while looking upward. The moon does not change quickly. Its face appears familiar night after night, offering a sense of continuity that feels calming. Another important truth is that the moon reflects sunlight rather than producing its own light. This borrowed glow softens the night instead of overpowering it. For the listener, this creates emotional familiarity. The moon does not demand attention. It simply accompanies us. As you imagine its pale surface hanging quietly in space, notice how your thoughts slow naturally. The moon has always been there, marking time without urgency. It prepares the mind to accept that stillness can exist naturally without needing explanation or purpose. This familiarity becomes a bridge. By understanding the calm of our own moon, we become more open to imagining similar quiet worlds farther away, where stillness is not empty but deeply supportive. It reminds us that closeness is not required for comfort, and that distance can feel gentle when it remains predictable, steady, and unchanged across long spans of time, allowing trust to grow slowly without effort or expectation in the quiet rhythm of familiar nights above. Our moon also teaches patience through its surface, which preserves marks from ancient events without erasing them. One calming fact is that footprints left by astronauts decades ago are still there, unchanged by wind or rain. This tells us that some environments hold moments gently rather than washing them away. The moon's surface records time slowly, layering history instead of replacing it. Another gentle truth is that lunar days and nights last far longer than those on Earth, stretching for weeks at a time. Light arrives gradually, and darkness lingers without threat. For the listener, this extended rhythm feels soothing. Nothing switches abruptly. The moon transitions slowly between states. As you imagine sunlight creeping across craters over many days, notice how the idea reduces urgency. The moon does not rush from moment to moment. Its pace invites reflection. This helps us emotionally understand distant moons, where time moves just as slowly, if not more so. Familiarity with our moon's long rhythms prepares the mind to accept that stability can exist without change. Stillness becomes something reliable. The moon shows us that calm does not require activity. It simply requires consistency. In this way, the moon becomes a quiet teacher, reminding us that worlds can remain meaningful without transformation, and that presence itself can offer comfort, orientation, and emotional grounding over immense spans of time. It prepares us gently to imagine other moons resting quietly in space without urgency, drama, or constant motion, while still holding deep significance for thoughtful minds. Our moon also offers contrast through what it lacks, helping us appreciate hidden oceans elsewhere. One important fact is that the moon's interior cooled long ago, leaving it mostly solid and quiet inside. There is no ongoing internal warmth creating motion beneath its surface. This makes it emotionally different from moons like Europa or Enceladus. For the listener, this contrast is helpful. It clarifies that stillness can exist in different forms. Some worlds are still because nothing moves beneath them. Others are still because movement is slow and contained. Another gentle truth is that the moon's silence has inspired reflection across cultures, serving as a symbol of constancy rather than action. People have always found comfort in its unchanging presence. This emotional relationship prepares us to accept distant moons as calm places rather than dramatic ones. As you imagine the moon hanging motionless above Earth, notice how the absence of activity feels peaceful, not empty. The moon does not need hidden oceans to feel meaningful. Its value comes from its steadiness. This helps us emotionally approach other moons without expectation. We do not need them to perform or reveal themselves. We can simply allow them to exist quietly, just as our moon has done for billions of years. This acceptance creates emotional space, making it easier to imagine unseen worlds without pressure, urgency, or disappointment, resting comfortably in uncertainty while curiosity remains gentle, open, and unforced over time, like moonlight returning night after night without ever demanding change or resolution. Our moon's relationship with Earth further helps us emotionally understand distant moons. One calming fact is that the moon's gravity gently influences our planet, shaping tides without causing harm. This influence is steady and predictable. It does not surge unexpectedly. For the listener, this reinforces trust in quiet forces. The moon affects Earth without noise or disruption. Another gentle truth is that this gravitational connection has existed for billions of years, creating long-term stability rather than sudden change. The moon does not pull Earth closer or push it away dramatically. It maintains balance. As you imagine tides rising and falling under moonlight, notice how rhythmic the motion feels. This rhythm mirrors the orbital dances of distant moons around their planets. Understanding this familiar interaction prepares the mind to accept similar relationships elsewhere. Moons do not need to be chaotic to matter. They can support their systems quietly. The moon shows us how a companion world can influence life without ever demanding attention. This perspective allows the listener to approach hidden ocean moons with calm curiosity rather than excitement. They may be active inside, but their influence remains gentle and steady, just like our moon's effect on Earth. This familiar calm helps reduce emotional distance, making it easier to imagine unseen oceans as peaceful extensions of patterns we already trust. It replaces excitement with steadiness and invites rest through understanding. Just as tides never rush, these distant processes remain patient, offering reassurance through repetition rather than surprise or dramatic revelation ever. Our moon also prepares us emotionally through shared human experience. One important fact is that people across history have used the moon as a symbol of time, reflection, and rest. It has guided calendars, rituals, and quiet observation. This shared meaning builds emotional familiarity. For the listener, this connection matters. The moon is not abstract. It is personal. Another gentle truth is that the moon's presence often marks moments of stillness, appearing during quiet nights rather than busy days. It invites looking rather than doing. As you imagine sitting beneath moonlight, notice how the body naturally slows. This response helps us understand why distant moons can feel calming even when they are unfamiliar. Emotional recognition does not require physical closeness. The moon teaches us that distance does not weaken connection when rhythm remains constant. This prepares us to accept hidden ocean moons as places of quiet potential rather than urgency. They exist far away, yet they follow predictable paths. Familiarity with our moon helps the mind extend trust outward. We learn that not all meaningful worlds need to be active or visible. Some simply accompany us through time, offering presence without demand. This emotional preparation softens imagination, allowing curiosity to unfold gently without pressure, expectation, or the need for dramatic discovery. It encourages rest by reminding us that meaning can exist quietly. The moon models this lesson patiently across every generation, offering continuity, calm presence, and reassurance through time without requiring change, explanation, or response from those watching below quietly. By reflecting on our moon, we gain emotional tools to understand distant icy moons without strain. One final fact is that our moon once may have had internal activity long ago, yet it settled into stillness over time. This reminds us that change does not always mean loss. It can lead to stability. For the listener, this perspective feels comforting. Worlds evolve toward calm as often as they erupt. The moon's long quiet state prepares us to imagine other moons resting in similar balance, even if movement continues beneath their surfaces. Familiar stillness becomes a reference point. As you hold the image of the moon suspended above Earth, unchanged and dependable, allow that steadiness to extend outward. The same principles apply far away. Distance does not remove calm. It preserves it. Our moon teaches us how to feel at ease with worlds we cannot touch or see closely. It offers emotional rehearsal for understanding hidden oceans as patient, protected places. This understanding allows the mind to remain open without excitement, relaxed without disengagement, and curious without urgency, continuing gently as attention drifts forward into deeper quiet. The familiar moon lingers in awareness, anchoring imagination as it moves outward toward distant, silent worlds that wait without expectation or demand. This anchoring presence supports patience, trust, and emotional rest. It allows thought to slow naturally, guided by familiarity rather than uncertainty, so awareness remains calm while curiosity continues unfolding quietly within the vast, patient rhythms of space we have always known intuitively. Imagine descending slowly beneath a vast shell of ice, not falling, not sinking, but resting. Above you, thick layers of frozen silence hold everything still, filtering out motion, noise, and expectation. Below, an ocean moves so slowly it almost feels like stillness. This is where the journey has been leading, not toward answers, but toward ease. The ice above does not press down with weight, it protects. It holds time in place, softening change until nothing feels urgent. Here, there are no signals to respond to, no light to follow, and no countdown to watch. Everything exists at its own pace, supported by layers that have remained unchanged for longer than human history. As you settle into this image, the mind does not need to search. It can rest the way these hidden oceans rest, supported by patience rather than force, held gently in place by a world that has learned how to wait. Nothing here asks to be solved, measured, or proved. The ice does not care who is watching, and the water below does not rush because there is nowhere it needs to go. This is a place where time stretches wide, becoming something you can lean against. With each slow breath, awareness settles deeper, finding comfort in the idea that nothing needs to happen next. The stillness is complete, not empty, and it invites you to remain exactly where you are, quietly held within a moment that is content to last. A moment that does not end. Under the ice, motion exists without direction or urgency. Water circulates in wide, slow paths, guided by gravity and heat that never flares. One gentle fact to hold here is that these oceans may take thousands of years to complete a single cycle. There are no waves crashing, no tides racing in and out. Movement happens so slowly that it blends into rest. For the mind, this is a relief. Speed is no longer the default, and progress does not need to be seen to be real. The ice above acts like a ceiling for thoughts, keeping them from drifting too far or scattering. It creates a contained space where ideas can float without pressure. Another quiet truth is that this ice has likely been intact for millions or even billions of years. It does not fracture easily, and it does not thin quickly. That stability filters downward, allowing everything beneath it to remain calm. As you imagine resting here, notice how your attention stops looking ahead. There is no edge to reach, no future moment that needs preparing. The present is enough, wide enough, and steady enough to hold you. Even curiosity softens here, becoming a gentle awareness rather than a question. The ice does not answer, and it does not refuse. It simply remains, allowing rest to feel natural, earned by nothing at all. You are free to stay here as long as you like, without effort, without thought, without end or expectation tonight. Now here inside stillness. Deep beneath the ice, energy exists without sound. It comes from gentle stretching, from gravity slowly pulling and releasing over endless orbits. One important fact is that this heat never burns, never erupts. It accumulates quietly, like warmth held in stone. This steady energy keeps water from freezing solid, allowing motion to continue without change. For the listener, this matters because it removes the idea of sudden events. Nothing happens all at once here. Everything unfolds gradually, so slowly that time feels wide instead of long. The mind responds by loosening its grip on anticipation. There is nothing to miss, nothing to catch. Another gentle truth is that these oceans are sealed away from surface disturbance. No storms reach them, no light interrupts them. Darkness here is not threatening, it is consistent. It never changes, and that reliability becomes comforting. As you rest with this idea, notice how your thoughts become fewer. They do not need to react. They can drift slowly, like currents that have no destination. The ice above and the water below create a complete system, one that does not ask for attention. It simply continues. That continuity is what allows rest to arrive without effort and to remain without being held. You do not need to follow anything here, only to float within the slow assurance that nothing will suddenly change or ask you to move before you are ready, ever, at all, here, now, tonight, beneath endless ice, soft water, and patient time itself waiting. Resting beneath the ice also means resting inside predictability. Orbits repeat endlessly, and the pole that creates warmth never stops. One fact that quietly supports this calm is that these moons move in stable paths that rarely shift. Their orbits have lasted longer than life on Earth. This means the environment beneath the ice can remain unchanged for incredible lengths of time. For the listener, this reliability creates emotional safety. When nothing sudden can occur, the body does not need to prepare. It can release tension naturally. Another gentle truth is that time here is measured not in events, but in repetition. The same motions repeat, the same forces apply. This kind of time does not surprise. It supports rest because the future looks like the present. As you imagine remaining here, notice how thoughts stop jumping forward. There is no need to check what comes next. The mind can rest inside repetition, the way a body rests inside sleep. The ice above you is thick, unchanging, and protective. The water around you moves only when it needs to. Together, they create a space where nothing is expected. And when nothing is expected, rest arrives on its own. You do not need to hold yourself awake here, because nothing will change while you let go, slowly, gently, and without worry, as time continues moving in the same familiar way, over and over, patiently, quietly, and without end, beneath the ice that never rushes, never cracks, never asks you to stay. In this final resting place, even the idea of life softens. It is not something to find or prove, but a possibility that can exist without pressure. One gentle fact is that if life were present beneath the ice, it would move slowly, using energy sparingly. There would be no competition for light, no need to hurry. For the listener, this idea is comforting. Life, if it exists here, would not be loud. It would be patient. Another quiet truth is that scientists listen for these worlds rather than seeing them. They trust small signals, tiny changes in motion. This reinforces a gentle lesson. Not everything important announces itself. Some things are real even when they remain hidden. As you rest beneath this imagined ice, notice how the need to know fades. You are allowed to simply be. The world does not ask for attention. It does not demand conclusions. It offers presence instead. This is a place where curiosity can rest alongside peace, where wonder does not keep you awake. It stays with you quietly, like a thought that no longer needs words. Here, beneath layers of protective ice, it is safe to let questions rest, safe to let answers wait, and safe to allow the mind to drift without direction, without effort, and without any need to arrive anywhere at all, as the dark water moves slowly, patiently, and without end beneath the quiet shell of time, ice, and stillness, holding everything exactly as it is, tonight, now. Eventually, attention no longer needs to travel. It can remain here, resting beneath the ice, supported by the idea that nothing will interrupt. One last fact to carry with you is that these worlds have waited for billions of years without expectation. They will continue waiting whether we watch or not. For the listener, this releases pressure. You do not need to hold awareness steady. It is safe to let it fade. The ice does not mind. The water continues. Time remains patient. As you rest with this image, allow your body to grow heavy, your thoughts to thin. There is nothing left to follow. If you have enjoyed this quiet journey, you are welcome to stay with the channel for more gentle explorations like this. But for now, there is nothing else to do. You do not need to listen closely. You do not need to remember. Just allow the sound of these words to fade into the background, the way movement fades beneath the ice. Breathing slows. Awareness softens. Nothing is asked of you here. Rest arrives naturally, supported by a world that has never hurried. And as this journey comes to a close, you can remain exactly where you are, letting sleep take over at its own pace, while everything beneath the ice continues unchanged, patient, quiet, and content to wait with you through the rest of the night, without asking for anything, without moving faster than necessary, and without ever needing your attention again, tonight, now.